The Burn Pile Murder Trial. It's a case about family dysfunction that turned into a dramatic month-long murder trial on Court TV. Meet the Farris family. Gary is the father, a prominent Atlanta attorney who made a whole lot of money. Melody is the mother, married to Gary for 38 years. The two adult boys are Scott and Chris, and the two adult girls are Amanda and Emily. The family owned a beautiful 10-acre farm estate in Cherokee County, Georgia. 3 of the children moved out of the home and started families of their own. One child, Scott, did not. He lived in an apartment on top of the barn on the family's property. On July 5th, 2018, Scott says he found his father's body in a burn pile on the property. He immediately suspected his mother was responsible. Meanwhile, Melody has pointed the finger at Scott. Prosecutors charged Melody, and Melody was convicted. Tonight, her attorneys join us live in studio to talk about the verdict, the murder, and the intense trial. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Big hour in store for you. We'll get to all the details at Adelphi, some big moments in that case. But first, let's talk about the case you've been watching on Court TV for over a month. Melody Farris, convicted. She murdered her husband, Gary. Gary Farris, the victim in all of this. This is the guy who earned the money, was the patriarch of the family, and the jury told us he was murdered by his wife. Melody is now a convicted murderer. You look at her, and she's been free for quite some time, but she's free no longer. She's locked up, facing the rest of her life behind bars as the woman who took the life of her children's father, her grandchildren's grandpa, and all the time was pointing the finger somewhere else, pointing it at her son, Scott, during the course of this highly contested trial. Now, the jurors from this case, one of the jurors spoke with Julie Grant this morning, gave us a lot of insight into what was going on in that jury room, because this was a case where, if you were following it on social media and some of the Court TV chats, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook, wherever, and you're looking at the comments, the viewers a little split on this one. This was not a march to the inevitable. This was one where a good percentage, I'm not saying an even 50-50 split, but a good percentage of Court TV viewers didn't think Melody did it, or didn't think that the prosecution proved it. But we'll take you inside the jury room with that juror tonight. She spoke to the juror, and tonight I will be speaking with the defense attorneys. They will speak with me right now. They are sitting right next to me. Joining us tonight, Melody Farris's defense attorneys, Michael Ray and John Luke Weaver. Great to see you both. Thank you for coming in. How exhausted are you? I never tried a case that was a month long. Exhausted, Vinny. Yeah. You have to be. You have to be. But you're here tonight. We're here. Okay.
Only for you, Vinny.
Yeah, that's what I heard. So I want to get right to this juror, because I want to get your reaction to what the juror is saying about what they were going through in that room and what evidence sort of influenced them. Let's begin by one of the things that impacted this juror the most.
What influenced you the most hearing this case?
For me personally, it was just the overwhelming, in my opinion, evidence that she was there during the opportune times for the murder and the cleanup, and that even though Scott had presence on the property during, you know, those, like, between 12 and 6 a.m., it didn't seem like there was any kind of an opportunity. It didn't seem like there was any kind of a motive. So just all those things. For me personally, it was just kind of like that logical conclusion of, if nobody else is here to do it, then who did?
Motive and opportunity. So she's looking at the timeline. You surprised?
Well, we talked to him yesterday, Vinny, and we spent a lot of time in the trial trying to exclude, because we believed it was kind of wrongfully presented at way too late to us, the geofence evidence that she's referring to.
And the geofence is building the timeline for the prosecution.
It is.
So when you say it's presented to you late, what do you mean?
After the trial started.
Oh, during the trial,
We got it October 2nd while we were still in jury selection.
Wow.
And then they actually added more to it about midway through the trial.
I didn't know you could do that in Georgia.
We objected.
I know you objected. How unusual was that?
Very unusual.
Okay, well, you have an advantage though, right? Because you can speak to your client. Like your client can tell you where she was all the time.
It's not her phone. It's Gary's phone.
Okay, so it was Gary's phone where he was, as opposed to her having the opportunity. So that's what you have a problem with. Was the timeline a problem for you guys? Because you're pointing the finger at Scott, right? So how did you see the timelines in this one?
Well, after we got the new geofence information from their expert, who was Investigator Harris. So once we got that information, it didn't really change our timeline so much as the night of the 3rd, but it changed the timeline of the morning of July the 4th before Melody left to go to Lake Lanier. And before that time had just been a gap. There was just no evidence of anything going on at that point in time.
Right. But you do have the advantage, right? Like, you can ask Melody, like, where were you? Like, and she would remember that. I know you can't tell me about attorney-client discussions, but like, the defense does have that, like, in their pocket. They can always speak to the defendant.
That's true.
You can.
And
she didn't testify, though.
She did not testify. And if you remember, there was some testimony about that day, July the 4th, going to Scott coming to the house first thing in the morning, getting the debit card, going to the bank, coming back, things like that.
Let me ask you this. Like, so much of this trial was about family dynamics. Did you know Gary Farris? Because he's a lawyer in Georgia. You guys are lawyers in Georgia. You didn't know him?
Never knew it.
No.
And so, as you're uncovering what's going on in this family, what surprised you the most, or what was eye-opening about it? Because for us who were watching this trial, it was sad, obviously, because of this family imploding in front of us and watching it all. But for you, trying to figure out the truth and trying to figure out this case, what did you think of this family?
We heard in the phrase kept being used throughout the trial from Chad Bruce. He used the phrase, the Ferris wheel, and that's been used, of course.
I used it.
You've used it.
Yeah, we started to use it.
It was their life for 20 years, and we spent so much time, and especially with the witnesses in the case, I thought, we got to talk about this, because the dynamic of this family, that they fought so much, I thought it was unique. It was painful to see, but it was also their normal. And I kind of I talked to Amanda about it, and she said, yeah, this was not everybody's normal. It was our normal.
And it was, I mean, Melody and her kids, what's the nature of that relationship? Like, how would you describe it at this point? Because, I mean...
At this point, or back in 2018?
Let's go back to 2018. 2018, yeah.
Fed up with Chris and abusing Gary's credit card and bank accounts. Somewhat fed up with Scott, I would say, getting tired because they had talked about him. Time to get a job. It's time, eventually you're going to have to leave the barn.
Because the kids are all grown up.
Yeah.
They're grown up.
But
I mean, he fought in Iraq, though, right?
Yeah.
But it was Gary, too, and that's what we tried to lay out. I mean, through the text messages that we showed, it wasn't just Melody. They were trying to build up this anger for Melody, but Gary would clearly say, give me back my credit card. Stop stealing from me. So it wasn't just Melody. It was clearly Gary. He was very upset.
But are Gary and Melody at all, like, working together on this? Because I kept repeating the line that they had this 38-year marriage, but they're living like on separate floors but separate lives, and having relationships with other people. Like, what's going on, like, between these two?
They were literally, and this has been since I got on the case, probably, I think it was June 2019. That's exactly what everybody said. It was like, they are married, but it is separate. They live completely separate lives.
All right, I want to play some more, because this was, I think, was for this juror the big moment, and I think for a lot of folks was the big moment. One of the reasons the folks who believe Melody did it, including the jury, after listening to this. Let's take a listen.
Was there ever kind of something with the evidence that made you go, oh wow, this for me might have really tipped the scales of justice?
Yeah, the phone calls. With
Rusty.
Yeah, with Rusty. There was a lot of conversation that I felt, there was a lot of opportunity. I felt like she could have denied it. She could have been more clear that it was appalling to her and that she had nothing to do with it. But to me personally, I felt like they just were getting their story straight carefully because they were aware that they were being recorded.
Right. They know they're being recorded, but as we listen to it, and I think this is another overall issue with Melody, is her demeanor. Like, I've watched a lot of trials. There was no warmth coming from that seat. And unfortunately, for someone when they're on trial, they're being judged, right? Sure. Right? We don't judge people in real life. You live your life however you are, you are. But she came across as sort of cold, and you listen to those phone calls, and they sound like they're sneaking, like they're talking about something else. And to me, the vibe coming from her there and from the phone calls, was there a discussion at all about, like, how do we handle this? Or is there a way to warm up Melody?
Well, I'll tell you, so Melody, to try to turn somebody into something they're not, then that comes across as fake.
Right.
You know, we wanted Melody to be authentic to herself. We knew they were going to hear these phone calls. So there were times when she cried during the trial.
There were. Absolutely.
When
the kids were testifying, for sure.
Totally authentic. I mean, she was a totally authentic version of herself throughout the entire trial, and I think that goes better than all of a sudden they're hearing one thing and they're seeing something else. That's just the way Melody is.
Right.
But there is compassion in her heart, and the jury was able to see it because the jury. I watched that video today.
And what did the jury tell you about Melody? Did they talk about that at all?
This is exactly what she said. That phone call, if you recall, when they came out, that's the exact portion that they wanted to hear. Not the whole phone call, just the 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And what they were actually looking for is Melody didn't say when she was asked by Rusty, "Did you say that?" She didn't say absolutely not. She actually went on and talked about something else for a minute before saying, "I don't recall," and then ultimately saying, "No, I think, not necessarily I think Scott did it," but Rusty eventually asked that question.
It's tricky because you know you're being recorded, right? So if you go into these big denials, sometimes people say, well, you're playing because you know it's being recorded, right? Sure. Was there any evidence that you wanted to get in front of this jury that didn't get in front of this jury for whatever reason?
Scott's failed polygraph.
That's huge.
That's huge.
Yeah, but that never comes in.
That never comes in.
Never comes in.
Never comes in.
A lot of my cross-examination, though, of Scott was from the polygraph interview, just to see how he would react, to try to trigger those memories. I was walking a very fine line, and I knew that. Jeffrey Fogus, he stood up and he objected fervently to me even getting into it. But it was important. I mean, he failed that polygraph. He ended that interview and he lawyered up. That is critical stuff that never got to be in front of this jury.
But it never is.
I know.
It never is.
I know.
Right. So was there anything else?
Well, we were somewhat. I mean, we obviously weren't trying to, set up some type of mistrial or anything like that. We wouldn't do that.
Right.
But if Scott said something, because if he got an idea going back, thinking about that interview that the GBI did of him, and he slips up and says something, then
door's open.
He opens the door himself, then we're just going to run right through it.
Right. So what did you think of the testimony of the children? Like, was that how damaging did you feel that was?
I think after we felt fine after they testified, after all three of them.
There was a big reaction from folks online.
But the jury, after we talked to the jury, the things they thought that people thought they cared about, they didn't. I mean, so the kind of diagram that the state came up with about the late night phone calls, they didn't care about that.
Nope.
They didn't care about that. They cared about the timeline, they cared about the geofence, and some of the phone calls with Rusty, but not even all of them. They said, we didn't care about all that other stuff. So this trial that went on for a month, I mean, if they could have somehow honed in on it, it could have been so much shorter.
Could have been shorter, yeah. But so as you're going through the course of the trial and trying to read where you are, take us behind the curtain a little bit here. Are you making, like, after the end of the day, are you two getting together and saying, hey, that went well, this didn't go well? You guys watching the jury reaction at all to witnesses or moments and adjusting your strategy during the course of the case?
He does that. He's the one that watches the jury. I don't look at him. I believe in you tried plenty of jury cases. You don't never know what they're thinking. You can look at them and say, I think they're on my side, and they come out and they're not, or they are.
But you can look and see that they're tired. And when they're tired, sometimes we could go much further on a witness, but we're not going to do that. We're stopping right here.
Now, talking about, let's get to, I want to go to the fourth soundbite that I have for you, which is about where the murder took place. And here's what the juror had to say about that.
For me personally, it didn't matter whether or not it happened in the house or it happened in the yard. I didn't really care where it happened. I feel like the house showed evidence that something happened in the house. But I personally think that it's not difficult to imagine that she could have moved the body. When we got out to the site, it felt like it was a bit steeper than it looked in the pictures. I know my own personal strength. I know I'm a bigger lady than she is, but I don't have any mental reservations. If I had to move something with everything available, I would have figured out a way to do it.
All right, so this, and then we're looking right now at the video of where the burn pile is and the slope. And that's one thing she said. The slope was a little steeper than she thought when she went on the jury view to actually see the land. How important, this was a big issue for you guys, right? Because the prosecution saying he's murdered in the house and then somehow gets to the burn pile. He's over 300 pounds, she's $120, and that's just, the math doesn't work there for moving that dead body.
Correct.
But this juror didn't care, because, and that's basically what the prosecution argued, right? You can use an ATV, you know, I mean, I had someone online saying, well, maybe they used one of the horses or something. Like, no one knows.
Yeah.
Why don't we know that? Why don't we know that?
Michael, talk about the crime scene.
Yeah, I think it would be because of the crime scene. I mean, essentially when they got there, you know, we were actually talking to Detective Hayes afterwards, and, you know, when he was talking to the jury, he was more of, you know, we just thought we were going to go, that it was an accidental death and all of that, and it wasn't going to be that big of a deal. And there are people trampling through the crime scene. They drove the crime scene truck through the backyard. And then nobody investigated it. They investigated the burn pile inside the house, and then they left it out. Nothing in between the house, nothing in the front, the barn. Things were just completely left because no one was in charge.
Literally, Vinny, they would look like right here on the floor in front of this table, but they wouldn't look out on the table or on the couch. They looked for nothing. Just right there on the floor.
So, what did you think the blood was from?
Dog bite.
The luminol.
We had evidence that there was a dog bite, and Amanda testified to that the week before he was bit by Molly.
Yeah, on his ankle.
And that would account for that. Is it possible that, I know you don't believe Melody did it, but whoever did it shot him at the burn pile?
That's what, when we were reading the stuff online, that's what people keep saying, and that makes the most logical sense. Shoot him at the burn pile, he falls in, that makes it simple. Then you get to the issue of, then why is there a bullet in the house? That's where I always come back to. And then you're relying on...
With no blood around the bullet.
No blood around the bullet.
We kept pointing to that over and over and over again.
So you've got this bullet in the house, and then it's like, well, Melody still, if she shot him at the burn pile, but then she planted the bullet in the house. That doesn't make any sense. So that's always been, for me, to me personally, that was doubt right there.
So when you looked at this jury, when you did the jury selection, right? You go through, you're in Cherokee County. Every county has their own sort of vibe.
Sure.
Was this a place where you felt, hey, listen, we could be successful in Cherokee County? Or is Cherokee County one of those places where it's much more difficult to defend someone?
You know, I actually think, Vinny, when we picked them, we believed that to be a fair cross-section jury. You had old, you had young, you had men, women, blue collar, white collar. We had everybody on that jury. We really thought that, and they did, and they told us afterwards that they were tormented. They would go home, they would have nightmares. They worked, they worked diligently. They're terrified of making the wrong decision. So at the end of the day, it made us feel better as attorneys that they worked on this case. They worked through their thoughts. We disagree, obviously, but Cherokee County in itself, I believe, is typically a good place to have trials. There are people that question the government. And for a defense attorney, that's good.
That's good. And I've seen that start to happen around the country now. There's a lot more skepticism, which, as a former prosecutor, not the best thing for us. But anyway, John Luke Weaver, Michael Ray staying with us. We've got more to get to in our reaction to this big verdict. I got some other things that I want them to respond to, including this test of strength in the middle of the courtroom that was done during the trial. Plus, coming up next hour.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, the au pair affair murder case. Brendan Banfield and au pair Juliana Magalese are accused in a twisted BDSM murder plot in the D.C. suburbs. Tonight, we investigate.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates. Tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
What happened that night?
Killed my wife. I don't remember none of that.
If you were me, would you believe you?
Interview with a Killer. Sunday, 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
And they asked me, who would anybody ever benefit from your father being killed? And I was very frank. I said, well, yeah. I mean, my mom.
They discovered a bullet lodged in a rib bone.
At that point, did you suspect your mom?
Definitely.
I did receive confirmation later that my dad had been shot, and that was pretty much the sticking point for me. When I heard that, I thought, it just confirmed my beliefs.
So did I assume the worst? Yes, I did. Obviously, I did.
Yeah. So in your own words, it's, when she said he is in the burn pile, what was your assumption?
That she had something to do with him.
Yeah.
That he was dead and burning
because
in the
I don't, that he was dead and burning up.
I was saying all along, that's bad, right? Like 3 of your 4 kids believe you did it. Your lover believes that you did it. And the jury's hearing all of this. Back with us, Michael Ray and John Luke Weaver, Melody Farris's defense attorneys who fought so vigorously and powerfully in the courtroom. A lot of folks commenting about the work that you guys did. How about that, though? Is that how much of a problem is that? I mean, I've covered a lot of spousal murder cases, unfortunately, through the year. It happens, right? And inevitably, it is rare that the children believe one of their parents murdered the other. They just don't want to believe it. DNA evidence, they could be Harvard educated, they won't believe that dad killed mom or mom killed dad. But here they did. Why? And how much of a problem did you see that being in this case?
Well, for us, from our investigation, the things we figured out along the way, we believed that Scott did it, and then we kind of backed up from there, and we saw that Chris became in concert with Scott. He had a financial motive, a benefit. He became the head of the estate after his father's death. And
Melody wouldn't get anything?
Exactly.
No, Melody wouldn't get anything under Georgia law, especially if she was convicted.
But if she's not convicted, this goes as an unsolved murder. Who gets the money?
That would have been fought out in probate then.
Okay, so they got to split up. So was there an actual, it's like a 2-step process, though, for Scott or Chris to benefit from any of this, right? First, you've got to commit murder, get away with it, and then you've got to frame your mother.
True.
And that's what Melody believes happened here.
That is what Melody definitely believes. And part of also what John Luke was saying is, why would they do that? But Scott started doing that the moment law enforcement arrived. You even heard from the chief of police, Chief Pinion, that he's literally just walking to the crime scene, just trying to check on his deputies, and he's just being fed information about affairs and a missing gun from the house, all within minutes of law enforcement arriving.
And that's, and obviously that's, did you talk to the jury about that afterwards? What did they think of that?
They didn't really say anything about that. That I just don't think that it, really the way the jurors explained it is said, there was no direct evidence. This is actually from the foreperson. There was no direct evidence, but there was just so much circumstantial evidence.
Against Scott?
Or no, against Melody.
Against Melody.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So let's go to that moment, because it's rare. It's rare that I said this is like a Perry Mason moment where an attorney points at someone in the gallery and says, "That's the real killer. Take a look."
From day one, from the early minutes of the 911 call, which let's think who made the 911 call. It was that man right there. He was in control from the very first minute of this case, Scott Farris. That would be somehow how your mother pulled off moving a 300-pound man in the house instead of the very obvious solution. which is that the one person on the property who could move him did move him, and that's you. You used that .357 to shoot your father, did you not?
No, because I never shot my father.
Did you throw that .357 into Lake Lanier after you shot your father?
No, because I have not seen that .357 since 2012, I think it was.
Did you shoot him at the barn, Scott?
I never shot my father.
Means, the ability. They started talking about those circles. They started zooming in on one person. And it's not Melody Farris. It's Scott Farris. He's sitting here today.
Have you ever had a moment like that where we point the finger at the person that you believe is the real killer in a courtroom, and it's not a co-defendant, it's someone who's just sitting in the gallery?
Never.
No.
Probably never will again. Once in a lifetime kind of experience, but it had to be done. He literally, and I mean, I don't want to repeat myself, but he was controlling this investigation from word go. When you see him, he is, I mean, TV doesn't do it justice. This guy is so large. He is physically the only person that could have moved him, moved his father. He was the same size as his father.
Is there, and something else people talked about a lot online is that they don't believe, they didn't believe Melody was innocent, but they believe someone else helped her.
Yeah.
And they didn't, and some were saying, well, maybe Scott helped her. Like, was that ever in your realm of what happened here in your investigation, trying to think, well, maybe there's something else going on here that neither side is talking about?
We kind of were really just spitballing ideas before the trial started about different ways we think the jury's going to look at it, and that was certainly one of them. Melody covering for Scott, or obviously in the online too, everybody was Rusty. But you know, we know for a fact Rusty was in Tennessee from his cell phone records, plus the other alibi information that he gave Detective Hayes. So, but we thought about those things. We thought the jury may actually consider that, and you know, even potentially say, well, we think she's involved and somebody helped her, so you know, that may also get them guilty. So it's just something else we got to try to mitigate.
Got to mitigate. All right. I want to go to one of the most dramatic moments I mean, we see a lot here at Court TV, but I've never quite seen this, and this was during your closing when you did this incredible demonstration. Let's take a look at that.
This is 320 pounds. I am 185 pounds. And that's all I have. I think it is the heaviest doubt of all.
I mean, everyone was talking about that moment like all day long. You're literally out of breath pulling that.
Well, the prosecutor made fun of me. He's like, I know John Luke's not been working out.
Right. But it was so vivid. What did the jury say about that? Did they talk about that at all?
You know, they really didn't talk about it.
No.
They really didn't talk about it.
No. That was just... Yeah, they just weren't...
I think it goes back. I think it goes back to that they were focused on the timeline, and they gave less weight to the actual weight and the logistics of this, which I think are still, you know, critical parts of this case.
All right. Speaking of critical, I'm going to be critical right now.
All right.
I'm going to be critical, and I think you know where I'm going.
I do.
Let's take a look. When the jury walks into the courtroom, generally everyone stands up. I cover trials, and I stand up in the gallery. I just do whenever the jury comes in. But take a look at Melody, and she is not standing up. She's not standing up. Like, I know you had the explanation. You told her not to.
I'll tell.
Well, did you tell all your clients not to do that?
All right. So if you can pan around, so the judge, and I know every jurisdiction is certainly different, but in our jurisdiction, it's always been a little more rural, and everyone's a little more equal. But you look at the judge doesn't stand for the jury.
No, the judge isn't going to stand for the jury. But some judges do. You're right.
Especially in federal court.
Yeah.
The clerk, they don't stand. The court reporter, they don't stand. But really, it's only the district attorney.
But of all those people he mentioned, only one can go to prison for the rest of their life based upon a decision made by those 12 people.
To be fair, Vinny, it's the first TV trial I've ever had, and hopefully the last. But I'll tell you this. Let me tell you a story. My mentor, He was a country lawyer. His name's George Weaver. He was my uncle. You can ask Brian Steele about him. They were friends. He told me my very first trial, he said, son, you don't stand. The prosecution's going to stand, but the jury is here to make the decision for your client. They're equals. The jury needs to know that they're equals. You rise for the judge because the judge is the symbol of the law, but they're your peers. And never give up on that and never back away from that. Don't pander to the jury. Don't pander to the TV anchors either. Yeah. Yeah. I've just never seen it. I've never seen it. And it's, did the jury say anything about it when you spoke to them? No, they didn't even notice it. Yeah, they didn't even notice it, okay.
Yeah, they didn't notice and didn't care. But I will also point out, I stood.
You did stand. See? Look at that.
All right. I guess former prosecutor, I was like, no, I'll stand.
Yeah, but I'm in the gallery. I stand when I go. Do we have time for one more? Okay, let's talk about the verdict. The juror talking about the way it went. There was a deadlock jury, then there was a verdict. Take a listen.
There was a couple of us, I don't think me so much, but there was a couple of other people that definitely had more reservations and concerns about convicting. And I don't know, I just felt like mentally, emotionally, it was a lot for us. But we went on a lunch break, we took a breather, we came back, and we just got right back into it as if we had in the beginning, and just worked through just a couple more little things that you know, a couple people had issues with, and then we all felt very solid about our decision.
Okay, and it was pretty quick, right? It was late in the morning, then by 3 o'clock in the afternoon they reached their verdict. Yeah. What's going through your mind, and what's going on with Melody when you hear the words deadlocked?
When they were deadlocked, well, we knew, because I've tried so many cases in front of Judge Cannon. I was like, he's going to make them go the rest of the day. He's going to make them come back on Tuesday. If they come back deadlocked again, he's going to give them an Allen charge, and he's going to make them keep going. If they're still deadlocked, he'll probably declare a mistrial around.
So they're going to have to say they're deadlocked like 3 times.
Oh, yeah.
Before he's going to.
And that's all Cherokee County
and he really didn't give an Allen charge. He just said, guys, you got to go back.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's it. I mean, he didn't.
So you
give
knew
the
they
full...
were going back. How about Melody? What is she thinking at that moment? Are you having any discussions preparing her for what this means and what it could? Because she got to be hopeful at that moment.
Yeah,
like, hey, someone believes our story.
Yeah, she was, I think, well, obviously she was very hopeful. She wasn't happy, obviously, they were deadlocked, because, you know, that means the potential of doing it again. But, you know, I think it kind of eased her anxiety a little bit, knowing that they may be deadlocked, and then obviously they come back from lunch. And
so they come back from lunch, what are you thinking, if it was that quick of a turnaround?
Well, yeah, because we talked to them. And, you know, they told us basically what the one juror was saying this morning. That's exactly what they told us. There were actually 2. And they went back again to the timeline, and they walked the jurors back through their opinion of the timeline, and one of the jurors actually, you know, looked at us and said, and that's when I got it, and I realized what they were talking about, and once I could see it, then I was okay to say guilty.
How do you think she's going to handle prison?
Melody she'll be fine. I mean, she's a very strong woman. She was fine, you know, because I represented her the whole time.
Well, not strong enough to pull 300 pounds, but strong.
Not that strong, but she, you know, the whole time that she was in jail for almost 2 years in Cherokee before she was released on bond, and, you know, she toughed through that, and she'll tough through this, wait and appeal.
All right. Anything that I didn't ask you that you think the folks should know that watched this trial for a month before we say thank you?
What do you think, Michael?
No, I don't know what you got.
We're out of time.
We're out of time.
John, Luke Weaver, Michael Ray, thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming in. Great to see you guys. Great work in the trial, and you know, that's the way it usually ends for the defense. I mean, I'm just giving you the stats, folks. So they didn't do anything wrong. It's just sometimes they're found guilty unanimously.